Hi everyone and welcome back to another Lawn Fawn video. This is Mindy Eggen, and in today's video we are going to be creating a mini slimline card. I really like the size of the mini slimline cards. Mine is going to be about 3 inches by 6 inches. They are really great because you can still create a nice full scene without feeling pressure to fill in all of that space. I'm starting off by stamping my images onto some white cardstock from Lawn Fawn. This is 80-pound cardstock, and I'm stamping the images in jet black ink, which is Copic friendly. The images are coming from the Dandy Day stamp set, Dandy Day Flip Flop, All the Clouds, and the Gnome stamp set, which I just pulled the mushrooms off of that stamp set. For the Copic coloring, I will have all of my colors listed at the top of the screen here for you. My mice are going to be a light gray, so I'm using C4, C2, and C1. And as far as where I'm putting my shadow areas, I'm just looking at what direction the mouse is facing. So for this one, the mouse is facing to the left, so I'm putting my shadow area or my darkest colors on the right-hand side of the mouse, and then just blending them out. Same thing for this one. It's going to be blowing that dandelion to the left. So my darkest areas, which is the C4, I'm putting on the right-hand side of the mouse. Just going a little bit around the head and on the bottom sides of the arms. For the inside of the ears, I'm going to use R22 and R20, and also adding in just some cute little pink cheeks. For the belly of the mice, I'm going to use E11 and E01. And then for the stem of all of my dandelions, I'll be using YG25, and I'm bringing in a C2 and just kind of going over those lines or that fluff of the dandelion. Once those are colored in, I'm going to color one of the mushrooms on screen here for you, and I'll be using a combination of red markers. And once again, I'll have that listed at the top here for you. It's R39, 37, 35, and 32. Just picking one of the sides to have that darker shade on. And the other mushroom, when I color it in, I'm going to flip-flop the shaded areas. For the base of the mushroom, I just have W4, W2, and W0. And the clouds, I am leaving plain white. Then I'll just take all of the coordinating dies, line them up, hold them in place with a low tack tape, and run these through my die cut machine. Now what I'm going to be doing on my mini slimline card is I'm going to have a scene on the top and the scene on the bottom. So I am using a Slimline Simple Grassy Hillside stencil, and I'm going to be using this on the Make Art Station. This is kind of new to me, but I've really been enjoying using this with my stencils. I'm just holding that stencil in place on the cardstock with these magnets, and I'm blending on Twisted Citron Distress Oxide ink, and then topping that off with Lucky Clover just to add a little bit of contrast. Then I'm going to remove those magnets, and I'm going to shift this up towards the top of my card. Now what I also really like about Lawn Fawn's stencils is there's actually an X. You can't see it on screen here, but there's kind of an X there that'll help guide you what the center of the stencil is. And I'm also using the grid lines that are kind of etched on that stencil too, to line it up straight with the edge of my cardstock. It makes a lot more sense when you see it in person, but they are really useful. So once I have that in place, I'm using those same colors again, the Twisted Citron and Lucky Clover, to ink blend on a little bit of grass. I don't want to go too far down because I'm going to have a sentiment in the center. Then I'm bringing that stencil back down to the bottom, and I'm lining that up. So this is masking off that area that I just ink blended, and I'm placing the cloudy stencil on top. So this is the Slimline Cloudy, and I kind of tilted it a little bit just to kind of maybe give this a more fluff look to it for my clouds. And I am lightly ink blending on Salvaged Patina, so it's going to be just a really beautiful blue in the background. I'm going to shift up that stencil a little bit, hold it in place with those magnets, and add in one more layer of clouds. Like I said, there's going to be a sentiment in the center, so I don't want to go too high up with my clouds. Then to kind of complete this miniature scene on the bottom, I'm going to remove that cloudy stencil. I still have my slimline kind of masking off my grass here and just lightly bringing in that salvaged patina again, so there's a little bit of blue haze behind my grass. Now I'm bringing that grassy stencil up again to the top scene of my card, masking off my grass, And then once again, adding that salvaged patina to the background. So both of these scenes are going to be very similar, and it's just going to be kind of opposite with the images. Now, what initially kind of inspired me with this card is when I was cleaning my son's room, I found country mouse and city mouse. And so I actually kind of wanted to make a country scene and a city scene for each of the mice, but I opted to just go kind of more simple and create both of these just cloudy, grassy scenes where they're maybe blowing kisses to each other or blowing these dandelions to each other from wherever they are in the world. Now that my ink blending is all done, I'm going to work on some other elements for my card. And I'm starting with die cutting the word hugs using the Kohl's ABC's die set. And I'm die cutting this out of the gold metallic cardstock and also die cutting it 2 more times from white cardstock. And then I'm just using the liquid glue to layer these letters together. And this is just going to add a little bit of dimension to the front of the card. By doing this, it also kind of helps separate that sentiment from the scene just a little bit. So after I have all of these glued together, I'm going to use a trick that I've seen Mona do quite a few times with her coloring to color her small images, but I'm going to use this trick for lining up my sentiment. So I just took some clear Scotch tape and I'm using the grid lines on my mat. I'm folding the ends over so that the sticky side of the tape is facing up. And I'm going to use those grid lines to line up the bottom of each letter. So half of my letter is hanging off, half of it is actually on the tape. And then I can line this up completely straight. And this is really going to help when I want to line this up on the front of my card. So now I can kind of start putting together my scene. And like I said, I kind of had this vision of, a scene on top, a scene on bottom. So that is why I kind of have a mouse going in each direction. And that one floating just was super cute and I had to include it. And it also kind of goes with the crafting rule of 3s, like with embellishments, you usually do odd numbers. So I thought having an odd number of mice would work the same way. So I'm just adding on my images. I have some clouds down on the bottom and my mushroom on the left-hand side. For the top, I put the mushroom on the right-hand side. And some images I'm gluing down with the liquid glue. Others, if I have room, I'm adding some foam tape to them. I didn't have really a lot of room on the top scene to add the clouds, but I'm just adding a few more of those kind of dandelion fluffs into the scene just a little bit. Now for my little mouse that looks like he's kind of floating there, I wanted to make sure that I still saw most of him or I seen his face. I didn't want to cover up his face. So this is where it's really handy to have that sentiment on the tape. I can kind of hover over the area to see about where it's going to be and make sure that I'm not going to be covering up the face of that mouse because it was just way too cute. So after I have the mouse in place, I added liquid glue to the back of the word hugs and then place that over the front of my cardstock and just kind of push down and hold it in place, and that'll adhere to the cardstock. Then I can just flip that over and trim off any of the excess that's hanging off. And then wouldn't you know it, I forgot to stamp my extra sentiment. So I had to carefully place this back into my Misty tool, and I am using a sentiment off of the long distance hugs. There's actually a different sentiment I wanted to add to this, but because I didn't stamp it first, I don't have enough room for the original sentiment. But long distance hugs still worked really great, and I stamped that in the black licorice ink. Now I'm creating a card base for my Mini Slimline. This cardstock is cut to 6 by 6 inches, and I just scored it right in half at 3 inches. And then I'm folding that over and reinforcing that fold with my bone folder. I can take my tape runner, add adhesive to that, and place my design right on top. Then I'll just finish it off by taking the Lawn Fawn glitter pen, and I'm going to add a little bit of sparkle to some of that dandelion fluff. Now, I love these Mini Slimline cards. I think they're just, for one, super cute. It's something kind of different. Unfortunately, they don't fit in a regular A2 size envelope, but you can use a regular business letter envelope that they would fit into. If you haven't tried Mini Slimline cards yet, I hope this inspires you to give it a try. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.